Hey guys, welcome back to Inc. Today I want to start a new conversation that'll run parallel to some of the heavier conversations. Today we're talking about turning our passion into our paycheck. And I have in conversation with me my friend Lloyd. Lloyd's a local photographer that I first met when having a photo shoot done for my band. I was immediately super jealous of Lloyd as I learned that he went on tour with one of my favorite bands as a kid. Listening to the conversation to hear how he went from picking up a camera on holiday to going on tour with one of my favorite bands. And as always, like, share, and subscribe.
All right, how's it going? Welcome to today's episode from Inc. We've all had one of those days where you feel like you don't matter. Everything's going wrong and no one is there to listen or relate. But here at Inc., you do matter, and here we can relate. Because for all of us, there's always a something, a one thing, or many things that can really affect the way we think and feel. We hope that today's conversation brings a little bit of hope to your day. And do make sure to stay connected by subscribing to the channel.
All right, good morning, Lloyd. How's it going, mate?
Good morning, Nath. Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Good. I think this is the first local lad that I've had on our Inc. series, and no, I'm excited to have you on. It's been a little while since we've worked together. It's probably going to be a little while longer with all this lockdown and
I know, yeah.
Craziness.
Hence my beard. I never usually grow beards. I'm locked in the house, so I thought, why not give it a go?
I know, and hence my hat. I've got the sketchiest haircut at the moment. So.
Same here. That's why I'm hiding it behind my hat here.
And actually, hence these glasses, and this will segue into what we want to talk about today. These glasses are blue light glasses because I've recently entered your world of film and photography and
being stuck behind a screen most of your day.
Exactly. Being stuck behind that screen. And so I've got these glasses on. I was up till 2 a.m. last night trying to figure out your world of film and photography. So let's get started there. Today I want to talk all about your passion paying the bills. So turning a passion into a career. So tell us a little bit about your passion. How did you get started in photography?
It's a good question. I got started, it was about 13 years ago now. I was actually on a cruise with my parents. So it was like a family holiday. I think I was 18, 19. So I was at that age where it wasn't really cool to hang around with your mum and dad all day, you know, so I was kind of breaking off, doing my own thing. And my dad had this really small little 2 megapixel camera that he had, you know, as a family camera. So I asked him to borrow that and just off the cuff, out of boredom, I guess. And, you know, it wasn't a boring holiday, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I was just looking for something to do. And I found myself walking around the cruise ship, lying on the floor. I was climbing up ladders, just kind of experimenting and enjoying taking these little snapshots. And we were at sea on that particular day. And the following day, we docked in Gibraltar, went kind of down the main shopping street, whatever, looking around. And there was a camera shop. It was kind of like a magnet. It was drawing me in. And I just walked into this camera store and there's a wall of cameras, you know. I didn't have a clue what they were or what they did. But I just spontaneously bought myself an SLR and 2 lenses on the advice of the sales guy in the store, because I didn't have any knowledge as to what I needed or what I wanted. But yeah, I walked out with a shopping bag with some new toys. I then went back on the ship and I spoke to the ship's photographers, because all cruise ships have got like a crew of photographers that are trying to sell you pictures all day long. So I basically just rocked up to them and said, look, I picked up this new camera. Can you give me some tips? And they were very helpful. And they kind of said, oh, you know, you should be using this setting and that setting and stuff. So I said, thank you very much. And off I went. And I just carried on experimenting, shooting anything and everything. But yeah, that was the start of the hobby, really. I really enjoyed it. I learned how to use Photoshop and how to edit pictures and stuff. But But basically a friend of mine saw on my Facebook that I had this new camera and I was enjoying photography. And he asked if I'd like to photograph his wedding, which was quite daunting at the time. If I think back to that moment, I kind of thought, oh, it's a lot of responsibility, you know, and I've never done it before. I'm not even sure what the expectations are. But with most things in life, I said, yeah, sure, why not? You know, I like a challenge. So I agreed to do that for him. I photographed the wedding, absolutely loved it. It was really good fun. I got some really nice pictures from it. And then that kind of got the fire in my belly then to do more and more. And now we're 11, 12 years later, and I'm still a wedding photographer. I do lots of other things as well, but I still shoot about 40, 45 weddings a year. So,
so good.
Yeah, that's kind of how it started. And obviously I'm self-taught, so it wasn't like I went to do a GCSE in it or an A-level or even a degree. You know, it was just the passion that I had for the creative aspect of photography that kind of drove me to turn it into a business, you know?
So good. So what I find so interesting is, like, back then, was YouTube a thing? Like, was it all self-taught on YouTube, or how did you start that journey?
No, it wasn't. It makes me sound really old, that does, doesn't it? But no, it was self-taught from pretty much trial and error to start off with. You know, I wasn't looking at handbooks or guides. It was literally getting a feeling for what setting produced what sort of image, you know, with like slow shutter speeds or fast shutter speeds, lighting, that sort of thing. But yeah, as I kind of grew, I read a lot of blogs. I did watch YouTube videos. So it was kind of the early days of YouTube, I guess. So like the content wasn't as vast as it is today, obviously. But yeah, there was a few kind of American photographers that almost became mentors. You know, I didn't know them. I never spoke to them, but if you'd asked me if I felt that I knew them, I'd say absolutely, because I watched so much of this stuff. And but also books as well. I've got quite a big bookshelf of photography books. Not that teaches you anything, but it's more like inspiration, I guess.
Yeah, so good. It's I always think it's amazing. Like, when I started playing music, you know, you just had to figure it out. Like, I remember my first instrument was a guitar, and it was all about tabs and chord shapes. And then when it was drumming, thankfully YouTube was a thing then, and I found the progression of learning to be a drummer with YouTube was so much easier. And I think an encouragement to anyone listening to this is, like, you can get started in photography with just your smartphone and like downloading the Moment app, which means that you can control the aperture and exposure and like all those different things that I'm learning about right now. I've started a journey just on YouTube, you know, and you can learn so much so quickly. So how did you go from being that kid on a cruise ship with a new toy to one of the things that when I met you, I was so jealous about, because you got to tour with one of my favorite bands, Funeral for a Friend. How did you get that gig, like on the circuit, on tour with them, taking photos for that band?
Well, it's interesting actually, because I grew up listening to the band. I guess being a Bridgend boy and their local band, that certainly helped. But they were just everywhere back then. They were exciting. Everyone loved them, as did I. But then a few years later, a good friend of mine, Gavin, he joined the band on the bass. So their bassist quit. He went to live in the States. So Gav joined the band as a bassist. So every now and then I'd ask him if I could get a photo pass if they were playing locally. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll just put you on the list or whatever. So I did a few like photography shoots I say for them. It wasn't for them at all. It was more for me, just being a fan and a hobbyist. But that's started to grow slightly. I went to a few festivals with them in the UK. Again, not necessarily as their official photographer. I was just hanging out with them with a camera. So I went to Heavy Fest which no longer exists, but that was a cool weekend. Did Reading and Leeds, and we did a smaller festival. I can't even remember where that was, but it was down south somewhere. But yeah, that's how it started. And then basically Gav called me up one day and he said, Lloyd, are you able to do video? And at that point, I'd never done any video. It'd always been stills, photography. And I hesitated. I said, yeah, why? What's up? And he said, well, basically we're going on tour like in 2 weeks' time around the UK. Can you come out with us and be our videographer? So again, enjoying a challenge. I didn't say no. I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I can do video for you. No problem at all. And I literally, as soon as we ended that phone call, I jumped straight on YouTube, funnily enough, how to film video with a Nikon D300. And then, yeah, literally 2 weeks later, I was on a tour bus with them and we were traveling from city to city. And I was kind of living the high life with them for a week, which was really cool. But I had the idea, again, not being a videographer at all, but not all of the shows had sold out. So I was like, why don't we do daily videos to say like, oh, look, we just played Manchester yesterday. This is kind of what the gig was like. And we were posting videos daily to help to try and sell the remaining tickets, which worked, which was cool. But also, like a side product of that was that I compiled some of the footage that I had done, and I ended up making a music video for them for one of their tracks called High Castles. Cool. So if you check that out on YouTube, that was made by me as my first video project, which I was like in the deep end, but they really liked it. So I think I passed the test. So but it was about taking an opportunity, and I think that's important for everyone in our creative field. As I'm sure you guys with the band, you pounce on opportunities that come your way almost without even thinking twice about it, Like if you got your friend on the phone asking you to go on tour with a big rock band, you're going to say yes, aren't you? You're not going to say, actually, I think you should get somebody else to do that job because they'd be better than me, So and I just learn on the tour bus basically how to edit video and how bit rates and frame rates and all that kind of stuff. But it was good fun.
So good. It reminds me of another conversation I recently had where the guy, he books big like travel adventures that are epic, and he like films and documents the whole thing when he's away for YouTube content and Instagram content. He books it on the Monday, goes on the Tuesday, and he's back on the Wednesday. And the reason he does it is because he knows if he books a trip way in advance, his anxiety will talk himself out of it. And I think like what you're saying is when that opportunity arises, like if it's going to propel you forward, you might not have all the answers now, but just say yes and figure it out along the way,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I can apply that same principle to loads of things that happened in my career. Like I do lectures a couple of times a year at Cardiff Uni to the photography students, and it's usually pretty straightforward. You go into a classroom and you've got like 20 or 25 students there who are studying photography, so it's really easy to talk to them because they're interested and they listen and they're making notes and stuff. And I got booked to do one of these talks without really checking like the spec sheet. I just kind of said, yeah, no problem, I'll be there. And I rocked up, and I was in a massive lecture hall with about 1,000 people, and I was I didn't even know this was happening. I was part of a panel, so there's 4 of us on a stage, and I was like, oh, totally out of my comfort zone. But luckily I was the last person to kind of speak. So I had a bit of time to figure out what I was going to say. And I think I nailed it. So that was good. But, it's just making the most of situations, I guess, and biting the bullet and, having the attitude to say, yes, I can do that, instead of, just being confident, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's so good because what's crazy about it is I remember on a photo shoot that we did together, actually, you were photographing my band, and I'm pretty, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure like that was the first time you used the flares and stuff that we used. Was that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was on the beach, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And had I have come to you and said, like, I really want a photo shoot with flares in it, you'd be like, yeah, we'll make that work. And you would have just found out a way to make it work. And I think so often we're cautious to say, yeah, I can do that, because you're like, I have no experience, but you only gain experience by doing and trying. And if it hadn't have worked, I wouldn't have cared, because there's so many, as a photographer, there's so many photographs and many risks that you're taking in that photograph that they never work, and that it just ends up being, a wasted shot or whatever. But then you get the gold that does work, which reminds me of a conversation we had. And we were talking about, you have to be prepared to fail to succeed. Michael Jordan has missed so many basketball shots, which means he's got one of the highest scoring rates out there, and you've got to be prepared to fail to
absolutely
to
the you can't fall at the first hurdle. But yeah, thinking back to that particular photo shoot, if I remember correctly, the wind was howling, wasn't it? It was so windy, and I was thinking, this is not an ideal environment to be setting off smoke bombs and flares. Ideally you'd want a nice, calm, relaxed evening where the smoke wouldn't disperse as quickly. But I think we made it work, didn't we? It was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Hadn't worked with them before, but just embraced it, I guess. But I think it's important. What's that saying? If you plan to fail,
if you
fail to plan, you plan to fail. Yeah. So, I knew I hadn't done that before, but I knew that I was confident in my ability to manage the camera, which is the first hurdle, I guess. And I just knew as long as that was okay, then we would have a decent output. So,
yeah, it's funny because we're still using those photographs today, and I think that shoot was maybe 2.5 years ago, maybe. And from that photo shoot that you took a risk on, we weren't signed at the time. We got signed, and our record label built an entire marketing campaign. I've never told you this, but they built an entire marketing campaign around that photo shoot and the smoke, which is crazy. Like we the first thing we released on the label was a bunch of lyric videos, and they were filmed by a guy in Atlanta.
I saw those. Yeah, they were cool.
Yeah, and he works Hometown Crew. I'm sure I'll do an interview with them because they're amazing. But all of that stemmed back to that moment that you took a risk using smoke bombs on a beach in Porthcawl, South Wales. So
awesome. That's good to know.
Yeah, it's cool, man. So last quick question as we wrap up. Obviously, it was a process turning that passion into something that pays the bills, turning your hobby into a career.
Sure.
The thing I really appreciate with you, Lloyd, is that it hasn't just become a career, but it's got some serious longevity to it. You're not just shooting wedding photography, you're lecturing, you've started your own podcast. It's so much more than just much more than just like a flash in the pan. How have you built out so much like volume and longevity to your career?
Good question. I think it's probably because I try to be as genuine as possible. So, I get on with people really well. So that certainly helped with my wedding clients. I often think as well, because I kind of got into like the wedding photography side of things quite young. I had a big network of old friends from school who were kind of at that age where they were starting to get married and people getting engaged and stuff. And I think they kind of turned to me because they knew me, they trusted me, and they had a rapport with me, which is the most important thing. But that certainly helped, I think, in my early days to kind of spread the name around and to get a lot of work in, which kind of set the foundations going forward. that certainly helped. But yeah, I just like to, I put my heart and soul into what I do. So I try not to follow trends. I just kind of do my own thing, and hopefully that kind of pays dividends. Well, I mean, I count my blessings every day that I'm still able to be self-employed and, be freelance, and I can pick and choose what kind of projects I get involved with. Like I do quite a lot of work at the moment for a clothing company, like my friend's clothing brand, Doomsday Clothing. And that's really cool. He's growing as a business, and it's nice to think that I've been able to help him do that with the images that I've been providing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like to keep my fingers in many pies, as such.
Yeah. No, it's good. Some of the qualities that I've seen in you, as you said, you're a genuine guy. You're really like good to work with, and something that I think is important in your line of work is like your yes is your yes and your no is a no. Like I've worked with so many people that say yes, and then like 3 months later you still haven't got the thing that they've said yes to, and it's so something that I've really appreciated with working with you in the past is when you say yes, it's a yes, it's going to happen. The shoot's going to be amazing. The product's going to arrive on time. Everything's professional. You're a genuine, hardworking, good guy. Like it's such a basic foundation to a business, but so I think so many people miss it, Yeah.
So, I mean, I find it really easy. I don't have to put anything on. I don't have to pretend to be somebody that I'm not. And, I guess if anyone's watching this, my advice would just be stick to your guns, be yourself, pour your heart and soul into it, and you will reap the rewards afterwards.
Awesome. Awesome. Lloyd, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. Nice to have a catch up with you.
Yeah, it's good, mate.
Cheers, I look forward to watching the rest of these episodes. It'd be cool.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. Take it easy.
Cheers, Nath. Take care.
Takeaway from that conversation is taking risks and saying yes to opportunities that scare you. Sometimes we're afraid to say yes because we don't know how to do it. But something that I've noticed in people that are successful are that they're really good at saying yes, taking risks, and figuring it out along the way. Of course, there's a lot to be said for learning your craft and being the best you can be at it. But sometimes it's good to jump into the deep end and take that trial by fire. So as I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Like, share, subscribe, and have a great day.
Hi, you still watching? You must have something better to do by now. Seriously though, thanks so much for watching today's episode from Inc. Remember, we all have those days where you feel like you don't matter. Everything's going wrong and no one is there to listen or relate. But here at Inc., you do matter. Remember, here you're included in something. You're part of a community where you are included. We want to inspire your future and bring a little bit of hope to your day. And before we wrap up, please do subscribe and stay connected to Inc. so we can continue to give you content that delivers a little bit of hope. See ya.